It's another fine Sunday here in Jamaica, still the best place on earth as far as I'm concerned. Yes, there is still a pandemic to contend with, but the sun still shines, the land remains green, and the people are always strong and creative. I'm Adrian Atkins, and welcome to Jamaica Magazine. There is much to see on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. This is certainly not news to you. Our COVID-19 numbers are going up, far more than any of us are comfortable with. It's a risk both to public health and the economy. But as the Prime Minister reminds us next, some simple actions on our part can reverse the course and get us back on a level path. Take a look.
So the government always has the plan as to how we configure the various measures under the Disaster Risk Management Act that will bring an outbreak under control. The problem with these measures is that they have an economic impact. They have a serious economic impact. So if citizens want to ensure that our economy is protected, that our health service is protected, then just do the simple thing. Wear a mask. Sanitize your hands regularly, particularly if you touch surfaces that are in public areas or surfaces you are unsure about. Maintain a social distance. Now, that is the most difficult one, it appears to me, the maintenance of social distance. Don't feel any way if somebody stands away from you. It's nothing to do with you. It's just about being safe. So you stand away from somebody else and the person stands away from you. If you see somebody, a group gathered and there are more than 20 persons there, take away yourself. Stay safe. Keep away from that. If you have to take public transportation, put on your mask, wind down the window, keep your hands to yourself. You come out of the taxi, sanitize your hands, and keep moving. This is how we are going to have to live until we get a vaccine. But I want the country to bear in mind that even if the vaccine were to be developed and approved next year, the process of having the vaccine produced, then shipped here, then distributed, could be many months after the approval. So we have a long stretch of time. I would say that the country should prepare itself for close to another year of measures before we can safely say there is a vaccine for distribution. So the only solution, the only real solution for balancing lives, that is keeping you safe and keeping you with your livelihood, is for the individual, the person, to change behavior and act responsibly.
We are having a general election during a pandemic. While you exercise your franchise, we want to ensure that you remain safe. You may do so by following the agreed COVID-19 protocols for the general elections. Election day workers, you will all undergo COVID-19 screening on September 2. For you, the voting public, on September 3, wear your mask to the polling station. Your hands will be sanitized and your temperature checked before you are able to start the voting process. As you cast your vote, your finger will be re-sanitized before you dip it in an alcohol-based ink. And to ensure your continued safety, polling stations will be regularly sanitized throughout the day. As you vote for your political representative, be smart, be responsible, wear your mask, practice social distancing, use alcohol-based hand sanitizer, and be sure to return to your homes immediately after casting your vote. We're in this together. Let's play our part to make Jamaica COVID-19 free.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Campbell. As we prepare for the general elections scheduled for Thursday, September 3, we want to ensure that you have all the facts about this important national event. So we've invited the Director of Elections in the Electoral Office of Jamaica, the EOJ, Mr. Glassford Brown, who will help us answer the questions you've been asking us. Mr. Brown, welcome back to the program. So good to have you.
Good to be here.
All right. Tell us, what do we need to know before we even enter the polling station?
First, you need to ascertain that your name is on the voters list. That's critical. Try and find your ID card, but if you don't have your ID card, there's no problem. You could turn up at the polling station, you'll be allowed to vote. And you need to know where your voting location is. So you need to find out those three things before you actually decide to go to vote on election day.
All right. So tell us, how do we find out where to vote?
You could contact one of our offices across the island. We have 70 offices across the island. Every constituency have at least one office. And also you could call into our toll-free number. You could call our head office, or you could go on the website. And the website will direct you to where your vote is. So there's a number of channels, a number of areas that you could get that information.
All right. So there's a little app that people are sending around. Is that bona fide?
Yes, I think it's a link to our website. But if you have a doubt about it, just go to the EOJ website, which is www.ecj.com.jm.
Okay, great. So this is the first time we're having an election under these kind of circumstances. We're going through a pandemic. Tell us what measures have been put in place to ensure that we can cast our votes without worrying that, I'm going to contract coronavirus.
All right, it's an election that is different from what we've ever had in our history. We are operating in a pandemic environment. Certainly, there are some other jurisdictions that had their election in the same environment. The reality is that we have to operate in this environment. What we are sought to do is to put in place a protocol that has been agreed to in consultation with the Ministry of Health. So our protocol requires that everybody that turns up at the polling station on election day must wear their mask. That's a priority. And also you'll be sanitized at the entrance. What we are sought to do, though, is in order to give our electorate some level of comfort, in the sense that we have brought on board in excess of 7,400 additional persons, and we have created a team known as the sanitization team. What that sanitization team will do in the morning is to meet you and greet you at the entrance of the polling station and to ensure that you have on a mask. And then I would like to appeal to our electorate that on the day that you come to our polling station, certainly on September 3rd, that you make sure you carry your mask, wear your mask on, and put your mask on, and you'll be sanitized, and then you'll be ushered into the polling station.
Right.
And your temperature will be taken at the gate. So everybody that passed through that gate, temperature will be taken. Our approach for the election, that we are approaching an election that everybody that enters the gate is COVID positive. And because that's the approach that we're taking, therefore we are putting a number of things in place to ensure that everybody is safe.
All right. So what is going to happen if you find out that somebody is really, after you check the temperature, you find out that they have a high temperature? What happens after that?
We are working out that protocol in terms of what will happen with the Ministry of Health. But bear in mind, not everybody whose temperature is elevated is actually COVID positive. So that has to be taken into consideration.
How are you going to prove that?
As I said, those issues are being worked out with the Ministry of Health. So prior to election, the public will know in terms of how we deal with that particular issue.
All right, but the sanitizing process, how long is that worked out? How long is that going to take? And that's going to lengthen the time in the polling station?
We have done a test run, certainly internally, certainly on the nomination day. That protocol was in place.
Yes.
It might delay to a certain extent, but if it will help the process if everybody, all our electorate, cooperate with our people on the ground in terms of the instruction that will be given to them. It's critical, again, as I said before, make sure you come to that polling station with your mask on.
Yes, yes.
And the sanitization of your hands should be a couple seconds.
Yes. Let's go back to the ID cards. The ID cards have all been expired. What form of ID? Should we still take the old one, and what's the process?
The current ID card that you have in your possession, I think most of them would have expired in 2017.
Right.
We took a decision to extend the validity of those cards up to the end of December this year, and therefore your current card remains valid. And therefore, if you need to bring that card along with you to the polling station, what it does, it lends itself for a faster processing of the electorate on the day itself. However, and I must remind everybody, if you can't find your card, it does not mean that you will not be allowed to vote. You can still come to the polling station. The only difference, it might take a little bit longer, because what will happen is that the presiding officer will administer an oath. But it's critical, again, try and find your card. It allows the process to flow a little bit easier.
So what is it about a passport or a driver's license?
No, we don't recognize any other identification method apart from our voter's ID. Okay. But as I said before, if you can't find that ID and you misplace it or put it somewhere else, you will be accommodated. The difference is that you take a oath. What we have in the polling station, we have a means by which we can identify everybody. Every polling station has what we call a black book. In the black book, you have all the biometric data, every data on every elector that is on the list. So therefore, we can use that to check. And also within the polling station, there's a photograph listing. Okay.
Any special measures for older persons 65 and over?
We are seeking to put in place an assistance for the elderly, our seniors, citizens. What will happen that a senior citizen that turns up on the day will be the supervisor. Every location have an EOJ supervisor. The EOJ supervisor will seek to bring that person to the front of the line so that we'll be able to get them in and out of the polling station as quick as possible. And I would appeal to the other voters in the line to understand the rationale for us to do so, because we are trying to get everybody in and out of the polling station as quick as possible. But I would like to make a recommendation to our senior citizens. I would recommend that you don't turn up very early in the morning, because what happened, the history is that a lot of persons turn up early, between 7 and 10 and 7:11. So the senior citizens are able to stagger their time in terms of coming between, so for example, between 11 and 2. At that time period, you normally find that the traffic into the polling station is a little bit low.
Oh, okay, good. All right, let's take a break now. We'll come back with more discussion on how to vote next week, Thursday, September 3, for our national elections.
Find out where you are to vote by calling the EOJ or checking the EOJ website. Remember to bring your voter ID card. Current voter ID cards are valid until December 2020. Remember, you may still vote without your ID card, but the process will be longer. Listen to the instructions of the presiding officer. Mark your ballot behind the voting booth and return your ballot to the presiding officer folded. Once the counterfoil is removed, your ballot cannot be traced back to you. Dip your finger in the ink and watch as your ballot is deposited into the ballot box.
Your vote is your voice. Make it count.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're talking about the general elections coming up next week, Thursday, and our guest is Director of Elections, Glasspool Brown. Thank you so much for staying with us. Mr. Brown, tell us, you can't register now and vote in the elections.
No, that time has gone. The list that we'll be using in election is the July 31st list. So if you're not yet registered, there's no way you'll be able to vote in the election coming up on Thursday.
All right. Okay. Now walk us through the process to cast the vote.
What will happen, having gone through the sanitization process I alluded to earlier on,
yes,
you'll be now traveling into the polling station. The presiding officer would lead the instruction there. What the presiding officer will ask you to do is to temporarily remove your mask for a couple seconds, and then so as to identify you, and then ask you to put back your mask. And then it will issue a ballot to every elector, and then accompanying that ballot will be a pencil. In the past, what normally happens is that the pencil would have been tied to the voting booth. What we're doing in this election, given what is happening with the COVID pandemic, is that every elector will be given a sanitized pencil. So therefore, the pencil will not be used by more than one person at the same time. It will be re-sanitized at all times. So every elector will be using a sanitized pencil. and then you'll be asked to go behind the voting booth and then proceed to cast your ballot. Then you return to the presiding officer. The presiding officer will then ask you to put the pencil in what we call a used pencil box. And then the presiding officer then asks you now to re-sanitize your finger before you dip into you put your finger in the ink. Suffice to say, though, that the ink that we use on election day is an alcohol-based ink. And also it has certain chemical features that will prevent the transmission of any infection. But as an added precaution, what we're asking you to do is to re-sanitize your hand before you actually dip in the ink. And then after that the process is completed, you'd bend the channel outside of the voting booth, and then I suggest that you go home and wait for the result later in the night.
Yes. Now, some constituencies will be using what we call the electronic voter identification and ballot issuing system. Can you tell us which constituencies and how different the process will be?
All right, those are what we call the electronic, where we have removed the ballot aspect of it. It's now the electronic voter identification system. Those now will be used in 7 constituencies. And the 7 constituencies, they include Western St. Andrew, West Central St. Andrew, East Kingston and Port Royal, East Rural St. Andrew, Central St. Catherine, Eastern St. Catherine. Those are the constituencies that we use. What it does is that it uses biometrics. In other words, your fingerprint is used to identify you, and that allows the process to move a little bit faster.
Faster, yes.
All right, so it's a computer-based system that will be used in those 7 constituencies on the day.
Okay, so the plan is to roll that out in the future.
The thinking of certain vision of the commission is that we hope to roll that out in as many as possible as in terms of the number of constituencies. Certainly our vision is to put them in the 7,000 polling stations across the island. We have started the process.
Yes.
It's now at the procurement committee, PPC. So hopefully during the next election cycle, we'll be able to roll out those gadgets across the entire island.
Okay, excellent. So what have you been doing as the EOJ to assist voter education?
What we have been doing, we have been meeting with a number of organizations. We have been out there in the press. We have a public education department that has been sending out information. We have been meeting with youth groups, etc. So we have been certainly in terms of even with the schools, the sixth formers, etc., providing them with information in terms of the process and what is involved in terms of, and trying to encourage them to be a part of the process. So we have been doing that certainly over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, etc.
Yes, and we've been hearing some ads on radio and TV as well.
Right,
Yes.
so that's geared towards that.
Yes, excellent. Election day workers, how are they selected and they're trained? Tell us about the training.
All right, what happened that day, for you to be an election day worker, you have to be 18 and over, right? And you have to be not politically neutral. You know, there should be no level of bias. There's in terms of your activities in the past, etc. So you go through an interview process, and then we select them, and then we carry you through a training process. And the process normally takes place across the island. It covers at least 4 to 5 training. And what it does is basically look at what is required under the Representation of the People's Act, ROPA that is, and what we train you in terms of what you need to do on the day. Having trained them, then we are then selected and assigned to the different polling stations. And we have recruited in excess of a little bit under 30,000 workers to assist us. And that included presiding officers, the poll clerk, and a group of persons known as the one-day policemen.
Yes.
And also a new group of persons will be the sanitization team.
Right, so politically neutral mean they shouldn't be an activist.
They should not be an activist and should not display any activism as it relates to any, be present or in the past.
Right. How will you keep your staff safe in the face of this highly contagious virus that we're experiencing?
All right, we have paid special attention in terms of our staff, in terms of protecting them. Every one of our staff members who will be working on the day will have on a face shield. In addition, they'll have to wear their masks. They'll be given your gloves, access to gloves. They will be given the necessary sanitizers. A bottle of sanitizer will be on the table beside them. So after every action, they can then re-sanitize their hands, etc. And what we haven't also been doing is that a part of the sanitization team, the 7,400 persons that we have recruited, There'll be continuous sanitization of the polling station, the desks that our workers will working on, etc., during the course of the day.
Excellent. Remind us now of the opening hours of the polling stations and also the time allotted to each Jamaican for voting.
All right. The polling station will open at 7 a.m. and it closes at 5 p.m. Suffice to say, though, if anybody find themselves in the line at 5 p.m., they must be allowed to vote. The process will continue until the last person in the line casts their ballot. By law, every elector, every worker is allowed a time of at least 3 hours.
Yes.
However, if you start working at 10 o'clock, it does not apply. Or if you leave work at 2 p.m., it does not apply. So outside of that band, you are required to be given 3 hours for you to allow you to cast your ballot.
All right. Is the EOJ ready?
We're ready. Certainly, we have an election on. Certainly, our workers and the security forces will cast their ballot on Monday. We are ready for that election, and we are very ready for Thursday.
Okay, thank you so very much, and we wish you all the best for these elections.
Thank you.
This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Director of Elections Glasspool Brown. For more information, you may call the EOJ at 876-922-0425-9 or toll free at 888-991-VOTE. That is 888-991-8683. Remember, as you go out to cast your votes on Thursday, wear your mask, practice physical distancing, and use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water is not available. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you more useful information, I'm Rose Campbell. Thanks for watching and take good care.
You've asked for it, and now it's here. The Jamaica Information Service has updated its mobile app. It's easier to navigate, loads even faster than before, talking about top speed, operates seamlessly across platforms, and we're a creative bunch, so it's much easier on the eyes. Now you have quick and easy access to news stories, television and radio features, and a variety of photos right at your fingertips. And you'll get push notifications when new content is uploaded. Download the app on your Apple and Android devices now and get news you can use. Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica on the go.
At last count, over 30,000 persons are in home quarantine, or at least they should be. Continuously, the authorities have been reporting that far too many people are not abiding by the restrictions on their movement during the quarantine period. This, of course, puts them, their families, and the entire country at risk. Again, we urge you to help Jamaica flatten the COVID curve. As a reminder, here's why quarantines are important and what's expected of you.
The purpose of quarantine is to closely monitor patients so that symptoms can be picked up early and the appropriate measures taken.
This tool of public health, quarantine, works by separating and restricting the movement of people who may have been exposed to a contagious disease to see if they become sick. As many countries, and eventually Jamaica, began to grapple with the introduction of a new strain of the coronavirus called COVID-19, quarantine has been one of the measures implemented. Persons are generally placed in quarantine for the established incubation period of the particular disease. As it relates to COVID-19, that's 14 days.
When we place persons in quarantine, what we want to do is to monitor on a daily basis and to ensure that if there are any symptoms that are developing, we pick it up early before the person reach to a point where they are coughing or sneezing and are more likely to be able to spread the virus.
There are, in general, two ways in which persons can be quarantined: in a government facility or at home.
The process of quarantine persons at home is not a simple one that we just send persons home. The homes are investigated by the health departments. We ensure that there is adequate space for the person to remain far away from other persons, and we ensure that the person is educated as to how it is that they conduct themselves, how it is that they move around, we ensure that the family is also educated, and then the health department checks on this patient on a daily basis. Now that check may mean that the person may be given a thermometer, and they're asked to check their temperatures, and they're given a log that they monitor their symptoms, and this is reviewed by the health department on a daily basis. If necessary, the health department visits the home on a daily basis as well. So we restrict persons who are in quarantine from going outside of their homes. And essentially in a home, what you really need is just a room and an adjoining bathroom. The general precautions in terms of making sure that you keep your distance, 3 feet is what we recommend. The person who is at home who of course does not want to spread any possible thing that they may have to their relatives will take the necessary precautions in terms of some of them may wear a mask, okay, to prevent. If they're talking to their relatives or friends, they may choose to wear a mask. The washing of hands is very, very important, because any kind of droplets that get on your hand, you can transfer to your face, and you can therefore get it into your ear passages or into the eyes and cause an infection. So the washing of hands, making sure that you have that facility, and also the hand sanitization if you don't wash immediately, that is also recommended. Essentially for a quarantine facility, what we really need is that the person is separated from other persons and there is minimum contact.
When persons are quarantined at one of these national facilities, they are kept in a room and monitored daily by members of a healthcare team. They are fed and their daily needs met during the quarantine period. In some cases, a third form of quarantine may be required, the quarantine of an entire community. Like home and self-quarantine, residents are required to be quarantined in their homes for 14 days. They are required to remain inside their houses and not wander about in the community unless necessary. They must remain within the mapped-out boundaries of the community, which are now manned by the security forces. During the period, government will deliver care packages to the residents, which include food, water, and in some cases, medicine. They are also educated on what is happening to them, what to expect, and how to prevent the situation from escalating. Whether persons are in home or government facility quarantine, it is important that they abide by the quarantine guidelines, maintain a positive attitude, and contact the Ministry of Health and Wellness COVID-19 helplines if someone in the household gets sick.
This is where the show wraps, and another one will be delivered tomorrow. You can watch it as you did this one on this same station. The JRS YouTube channel has this and other programs you can enjoy, so check it out. While you're online, visit our website and social media pages to be informed and have your voice heard. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson, saying thanks for watching. Take care and see you next time.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.